People to join the webinar today. Everything about break nothing, how to ship and evaluate AI features with FlagSmith and LangWatch. And as I shortly already shared just now, we have a special guest as well joining us the few first minutes of today. And I'm excited to tell a bit more about that in a bit. And while we're waiting, the slides are getting up. Always starting sharp at 5 p.m. or at least at the round clock. That then we need to wait a bit for people to join from other meetings and such to see people and attendees joining us. Okay, 2 minutes after 5 p.m. Let's kick it off. And hi everyone, thanks so much for joining the webinar Break Nothing: How to Ship and Evaluate AI Features Safely. Today we're here because LangWatch and FlagSmith feature flags and AI evaluations and agent testing are increasingly showing up together in real-world Gen AI and especially agentic AI deployments. We see teams are learning that it's not just enough to build AI features. You need a way to better and safely release them, measure them, iterate quickly, and roll back when needed. I'm Anouk, co-founder of LangWatch, and joining with us today are Asaf. And you can click on that next slide, Asaf, to introduce yourself, Principal PM at FlagSmith, as well as Rogerio, my co-founder and CTO of LangWatch. Gentlemen, can you give the crowd a short intro about yourself before we're hitting the ground?
Would love to. Thank you, Manuk. Hi, everyone. My name is Asaf. I lead the product at FlagSmith. Basically, my job is to help other teams find the best way to ship faster, safer code and release it in a way that's continuous and fun for everybody involved. We try to take complex stuff and complex release pipelines and make them manageable.
Awesome. And thank you, Manuk. Hello, everyone. My name is Rogerio. I'm the CTO and co-founder of LangWatch. And my job is to make sure that every company can actually deliver their agents to production safely and securely. And guarantee that it goes to the right journeys, to the right scenarios, and have the right behavior and using the correct tools. Excited to go over the demo that we have for you today.
Awesome, great team, and very excited about what you'll be sharing. So today is all about the intersection of how do you ship AI features like software with control, observability, and confidence. And our agenda is as follows. You can read it already, but first we will have a special guest joining us from Sky Kanshu. It's a joint customer of both LangWatch and FlagSmith. So we're very excited to already get some insights into the use cases. And then we will dive somewhat deeper and technically into FlagSmith and LangWatch. And finally, you will have to wait until the end to see the concrete examples on how teams are using feature flags and evals to test prompts, models, and agents safely, and some code examples. At the end, we will open things for Q&A, but I will keep an eye on the chat throughout, so feel free to drop any questions. With that, let's jump to it, and happy to bring forward and introduce Lior, lead and AI architect at Sky. Welcome. I know you're on a tight schedule, hence we are bringing this part forward to the webinar. We actually just love to hear from you on how you combine LangWatch and FlagSmith together while launching AI features at Sky. So everything we'll show later has a bit of a more practical approach with your use case in our minds. Could you guide us through that? And with that, I'd love to hand it over to you.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Is my slide the next one?
Yeah.
Perfect. So just a little shortly about myself and Sky. Sky is an omnichannel platform for advertisers. So any ad that you usually see on the internet, TV, or anything else might have come through us, through different publishers. And for the last year, we've released an agent called Celeste. Celeste is marketing-wise a very advanced agent, allowing users to ask questions about their marketing information and optimizing their ads and getting insights on how they actually behave in production. We've been working with LangWatch, I think, for almost 6 months now, and with FlagSmith, I think, for a couple of years. And the two together have allowed us to, I guess, deploy with ease of heart new features into Celeste. So the way we kind of work with LangWatch and FlagSmith today with LangWatch, much like a lot of other platforms, we collect a lot of traces from our clients with questions that might interest us and them to get answers. And we build these kind of data sets around types of questions, types of features that we want to analyze. Once we have these data sets, we add what we call criterias, and LangWatch call them criterias, where we want to understand or define how we want to understand if the way our agent answered a question is correct or not. And beyond only just understanding the answer, also looking at the actual workflow and let's say I want to make sure that tool is being called when I answer a specific question or something like that. So in these criteria, we define all these things in free text. And that's where that's the foundation of our pipeline where we want to release new features. Once we have those, basically for each feature, we define these data sets of questions that we call them the golden data set. If they all pass, then we're good. If they don't pass, then we need to fix something backwards. So in the execution pipeline, because we have all these features and not all of them are available for all our clients, basically using FlagSmith, we decide for each scenario, each run, what actual feature flags are available for each run, and also like we can also toggle them and make sure that for the same questions, do we show regressions or not? And all of this is before we even made it to production. So scenarios, another very cool and exciting tool from LangWatch, where we can actually execute our agents, I guess in some like a sandbox in many ways, where we can validate the workflow that the agent runs. So using FlagSmith to define the state of our application, the criteria that are sitting with LangWatch, we basically run the scenarios on real use cases and real data. Once we have those and we can see the criteria have passed or not, basically we can decide if we want to investigate on something, we can see the actual traces and see why something has worked or not. But the other very cool part is we can actually label each execution and say, based on these user features, now I can see the trend of performance, for example, or how accurate my questions were. So this is where we are right now. Hopefully in the future, we're also going to do that in production during the actual usage. But at this point, this has been a lifesaver for us to actually be able to check all these questions and all these permutations of feature flags and seeing how they're going to behave in front of our faces, I guess. So that was me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Leroy. And that's great stuff. And love the part on the lifesaver part for sure. And it's only just the start of of something bigger, I believe. Happy that you could share it with us today. And thanks so much for joining. Over to you, Asaf.
Thank you very much, Leroy.
Thank you. Thank you, Leo. I actually jump into what is a feature flag. The reason is that those who are familiar with feature flagging see it as something that's obvious and always been there, but we're learning that that's not really the case in the industry today. And without getting into the exact numbers, roughly half of engineers either do not know or do not use feature flagging on a daily basis.
I think
So
it was
that's
even
kinda-
60%, right? That are still...
I've started to dig into the numbers. That's why I said roughly 50. I'm not so sure. I definitely want to dig into this. Personally,
It's still a big number. Yeah.
It's a big number. I think it's a bit of a cult thing. Once you start using it, you never understand how you could deliver code without that. And really, the phrasing, the terminology is also a key factor here. So really, just what is a feature flag and why are we talking about it? If before there was complete releasing and deploying was the same thing, the feature flag is something that separates it. It's no longer all or nothing release. Now we can deploy code and release features in different steps of our workflow and our business logic and the way our product evolves. And taking that further, we can also be very specific as to who has access to what and where on what stage. And that's how we can buid a lot of QA pipelines involving other people that can already test even on production or pre-production environments. But we can push collaboration into the whole process by really showing code to others much earlier in the process and have it interact with the real world in an earlier phase. So that's the reason we use feature flags. And I think Lior mentioned the word state. And I think that's really a cool way to think about things. It's no longer an on-off thing. We're talking about our application in a certain state for certain users. So when we look at how does that change the way we write code, deploy code, and release features? So, and especially now in this context of AI coming in, it's even more relevant and for me very natural. I hope we have time to talk about it a little bit later. But what we're seeing is that the velocity of experimentation is really going way up. We're seeing that actually pushing code that is work in progress is fine. It's very controversial to say if testing in production, is that okay? Is it inevitable in the way we code and release things today? And really, that's a complete change to how we look at getting things to these environments, and feature flags make it super easy and non-brainer almost way to do that. We're also seeing it a lot regarding bottlenecks, talking about dependencies and about responsibilities. Again, AIs who are now taking part in these release pipelines and taking away those bottlenecks. But still, feature flags is what gives us the safety and security while we interacted with larger teams of engineers or with AI to ensure that we can create this progress, but it's still very manageable. Even for large organizations, even within enterprise, we use feature flags with audit logs that can trace back, connecting it to tracing the whole process. So even that is traced in a way that even when we let these AIs start to interact more intimately with our code, we have a lot of observability into really what's changing and what's getting exposed to who. That's kind of a high level of how feature flags are really touching the industry today, especially, again, hope we can talk more about this a bit later when AI comes into play. And when we talk about really this QA part, and we started from code and then we're moving to this environment, and that's exactly where language comes in. And with that, I will pass it to Rogerio.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Can you go to the next one? Yes. And then why agentic AI needs a new layer of testing. So as you already know, software has the traditional unit testing, integration, and end-to-end testing, right? And as I've described, now you can even test in production and it's okay because you have feature flags and then you can control and really safely. Um, However, when we talk about agents, they're very different from previous software in the sense that they are brittle, which means that any small change can break them, right? So it's like a Jenga tower. Any small change on the prompt can cascade into changing behavior or workflow that you didn't expect, especially as we get our agents to do more and more for us, right? And to go autonomously doing stuff more and more. So one, the traditional tests fall short. So when when you're building an agent, what everyone does, the whole industry does, is basically you have a chat, right? And then you send a message to it, and then you see if it kind of worked. And then if it doesn't, if something smells weird, you go there, you adjust the prompt a little bit, and then you send another message and try again, right? This is how everyone does it. However, this doesn't scale, and the whole industry is realizing that. You can put some first version, you can do a demo, but then the first month you launch, people barely trust it, right? And then there is all these bug reports, all these issues, how the agent's behaving weird. And then you want to go and fix the prompt, but you are always worried of what else may fail. And then also like the models change under you, they keep updating to new models, and you don't know if you update how better or worse your agent will be, or specific things that will break. So with AI now, teams are shipping faster than ever because they can have literally AI write their code. But the confidence in those AI agents haven't scaled. So prompt changes disrupt the model, model updates disrupt your agent. And then, like I mentioned, you get in the sphere into adding new things. Now, what I'm going to show is how can you bring this trust back? How can you write tests for agent in an end-to-end fashion that you can really read the conversation, can really trust the agent. And then we're going to combine that with FlagSmith. So then you can go in production and then you can release bits of your agent bit by bit and then see how is the behavior going, if it's improving or worse. So you have this confidence on both levels, before launching where you check hundreds of scenario, and then after production where you have this fail safe or this kill switch. Should anything go wrong, you can kill it immediately and then write another test to make sure before trying again. So yeah, if you can go to the next one. Yeah, so to explain that, first I wanted to touch a little bit on evaluations. You maybe heard about evaluations already, which is something that you should do for your agent. And you may heard about what is an agent, right? That it does two calls and executes stuff. But in real life, an agent is a complex set of little pieces like this one described here. So in this case, we have represented here a real-world agent that uses a bunch of LLMs, and each of those smaller pieces, they can be evaluated separately, right? So you have language detection with 95% accuracy, unstructured data parsing if the user send a PDF and you need to process. That one has 97% accuracy, for example. And the RAG, you evaluated a different metric, F1 score, and so on. However, if you show that to an expert, to the business person, to your users, this doesn't give you any trust, right? It's just a bunch of numbers. And those numbers are great. They contribute to the overall quality of the agent. But what you really want to know if it's all those pieces working together actually deliver on the scenarios that you expect on your critical path, on your edge cases, and so on. So if you pass to the next one, Asaf. What you want to know is that all this together is working. And this is what we call simulations. Why simulations? Because it's way more than evaluations, which are generally just focused on input and output, right? So you have an entry, I don't know, you have a sentence. Is this sentence in English? Is this sentence in Dutch? For example, you have a PDF. Did it extract the right format? So you can calculate the accuracy there. However, when you're talking about an agent, you're talking about using all those tools in a combination that can be any combination in any direction in many turns, right? So you talk about multi-turn testing. And the only way to test that is to actually put your agent in a simulation. How do you simulate an agent? Well, you have conversations with it. So we have a user simulator agent that pretends to be a user and talk to your agent in all those scenarios and testing those cases. And if it's a voice agent, then we call your agent and so on. So effectively putting it in a simulated scenario and seeing if it's doing its job. Next one. And this brings us to our test pyramid process. So the way we envision how all those fit together and how you should go about the quality of your agent is combining a good amount of, first of all, at the most basic level, unit tests, so you know that your code works. But then above that, the evaluations, those little pieces that I showed, so you know that each small tool, each rag that you have in your agent is of high quality, has a good accuracy. But then on top of that, you want a few set of simulations to know that everything is working well together. Now we're going to show an example application. We're not just going to talk over slides. Oh yeah, sorry, just to explain a little bit, how is the scenario actually running? How is the simulation actually defined? You basically give it a script and you say what the user will say, what the agent will reply, and then you can let the rest of the simulation run by itself, right? So the agent and the user will talk back and forth by themselves, and then in the middle you can verify, for example, in this case here, the agent replies in English when they shouldn't, so I'm testing if they could switch back to Dutch. If they use the search tool call by step 5, and if the user gets escalated to a human at the end. So you basically have this scenario that you define, this script, this flexible open script on how the agent should behave. So if you could go to the next one. Yeah, so the agent that we have to show you folks here as a demo is a bank support agent. So this is, I imagine that you're calling your bank or you're calling your Stripe account, and then you need to control some things that happen there. Then this agent has these 3 tools, get account balance 2, financial transaction 2. It has these 2 tools, sorry. We are adding a new one. which is the transaction conflict resolution tool. So our agent's already working live in production, but we want to add a new tool, and we don't know if that will break things or how well this tool is going to work, right? So we put it under a feature flag using FlagSmith, and then we'll show how can we enable and disable this tool, and then how can we write tests as well to check on different situations of the usage of the tool if it's working appropriately. SF, so on the architecture of the app is this one. Basically, you have a user. The user talks to a front end, of course, a little chat window, and the chat window talks to the backend, the agent, right? The agent will check for flags on FlagSmith and then see if it has the which tools it's enabled or disabled, and then being monitored with LangWatch, so you can see all the traces and everything that is going behind scenes. And of course, it's OpenAI behind the scenes powering this agent. But we then also have on the side, you see there, scenario tests. So scenario is pretending to be the user, simulating the user, except of course it's skipping the front end and it goes directly to the agent, but it talks to the agent back and forth, just like the user would, to exercise this whole flow. Now, take it away, SF, to show a little bit of our agent, and then we can deep dive in the code on how it works.
Sure, let's do this. I will share more of my screen here.
Awesome. And as I see more attendees joining still now, feel free to throw in any questions in the chat. In the meantime, we will also save some time for the end to answer any questions.
Perfect. Setting the stage, we have a very simple banking app that I found somewhere.
Sorry, Fried, I see that you
Fried?
raised the
Yeah.
hand, but feel free to just send a message on the chat, and then we can take them as we go, or at the end, then we raise hands. But yeah, feel free to just send a message. Sorry.
Would you like to stop now for any questions, or?
Yeah, no, let's go on.
All right, cool. Yeah, we've got this beautiful banking front-end application, and the feature we've just discussed is about adding the dispute function to the banking agent. So the conversation is done through this little chat friend of ours. And I want to dispute that coffee wasn't me. And we can see what happened here. So the FlagSmith interface is where we were defining the availability from the chatbot itself, which is a feature on its own that can be turned off, to the dispute resolution feature task tool inside the chat, as well as the dispute model. And you can see that our chat is saying that our dispute tool isn't available to it. Yeah. And we can see actually that AI dispute resolution is currently turned off in our development environment. So maybe I'll turn this back on, and we're going to try again and see if it works. Hey, please try again. Dispute my coffee. And we can also use flags in a bit more advanced, where we use variation and values of flags in order to define different exposures to, for example, different LLMs or different versions altogether. We can do weighted exposure and experiment what works better, channel that into LangWatch as well. And this time it should actually be available to me. Might ask for some more information, but okay. While we're here, we can see that although one part of flags is used in the front-end application to the availability of the chatbot itself and this ability, the other part is actually a server-side flag. And I believe this is the no, or one of the other ones can be decided as server-side flags. And that's how really, again, talking about releasing, separating, releasing from deployment, this ability to use different flags for different parts of the feature or config, again, states of a feature, part front-end and part back-end comes into play.
Yeah, I think GPT-5 is a bit slow today.
Yeah.
And maybe you can show the trace behind the scenes meanwhile.
Let's jump. So we should already have
Yeah, no
stuff
worries.
traced here.
So yeah,
And
there was a
beautiful.
dispute, Yeah, so exactly. So it replied the dispute back. But if you open up, yeah, this was when it didn't have it available. If you open the trace details, yeah, then you can see all the details behind the scenes as well, and the right tool it called. In this case, there was a failure there in the middle because it didn't have this tool available when the flag was off. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, we should see another one that it didn't open out yet.
I'm on it.
Still find any coffee charge or unrecognized in the records. Okay, it's just asking me for a transaction ID.
But that worked, right? So
Yeah.
the dispute is working. It just didn't find a transaction, but that's a different thing.
It's being proactive now. Transaction ID is coffee something. Yeah. So this is really how we're seeing customers using flags as whole features, inside features, and as configs, and especially when we see more AI usage, where this fine-tuning can even be done inside variants of flags with controlled exposure.
Awesome.
Can I pass it to you? Yes, please.
Yeah, now let me show the counterpart of that. How can we test it before even going to production, right? So you tested the flag. If I can take over, Asaf?
Sure.
Yeah, let's go. Share. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see the code?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
so this is the code working behind the scenes on what as I've just shown. We have here an agent using the Mastra SDK in TypeScript, and then here we have a list of tools. And then it's simply an if and else. So we have an if condition here to check if the transaction flag is enabled, right? So here we are checking for that flag, and then if the flag is enabled, then we give this tool in the hands of our agent. If it's not enabled, then we remove it, right? But of course, everything can happen in production. So we need to put these flags, and then we put it live, and then we see how the world reacts to it. However, we want also to be safe, right? On a safe side. And then before going to production, test the agent for all these paths, which can be many paths usage as development teams discover them. And for that, we can use tests and simulation tests, which I'll show here. But first, I will run them already and then go back to show you the code. So if you can see my terminal, let me restart here. I just changed the model to GPT 4.1. So hopefully this one is also smart enough to pass the test and a bit faster than GPT-5. Let's see. So here I have the first scenario, which is check, balance, and transfer. This was from using the previous tools, right? So in this scenario, yeah, as you can see, the user just want to check how their account is. And then as you saw, LangWatch pops up and you can follow the conversation, see what's going on. You see that it does some tool calls. It listed the user account, and then you get account balance, and then replied, your checking account is 50,000. Okay, then the user asked to transfer, and then you see that a transfer occurred, success. So the whole scenario was reproduced, and it worked. The agent achieved the criteria we defined. And then already those were quick. There are already two other scenarios that we run. Those are scenarios that we created for a new tool or the lack of. So first of all, we created a scenario testing what happens if the transaction dispute tool was enabled. And then what it does is the user asks to dispute, and then it just calls the dispute tool. That's it, problem solved. If it's not enabled, then the agent will reply, thank you for the request, but at the time I don't have this capability, which is also a success. So it does what we expected when the agent's not there. The way we define those scenarios is by simply writing a test to it. So it's pretty much like a unit test, except that you can define a script to simulate your agent. You connect your agent. So here I'm connecting the banking agent adapter, and then you connect what other agents are going to participate in the simulation. In this case, the user simulator agent, someone pretending to be the user, and then a judge agent that will check for all these criteria to see if the agent is doing what it should on this scenario, check, balance, and transfer, right? Here is a description of the scenario. The user wants to transfer 500, and the user confirms the transfer, and so on. So on the script here, I say that the user sends this as the first message. The agent will say something, I don't know what, but whatever it replies, it should have called the get account balance, right? Because they asked for the balance. Then they'll go for 2 more turns. What generally happens here is that the agent asks for confirmation for the user. The user will probably confirm, and then whatever happens, I expect that the transfer funds to should have been called because the user asked that. And then at the end, I judge the whole conversation. So then this criteria will be validated. Did the agent confirm? Did the agent check if there were sufficient funds? And as we can see, it did. So then the test succeeded. If the test had failed, you get a red here, and then you can open up and debug. And then for our feature flag, what do? We simply mocket the flag from FlagSmith. So we force the flag to be true, and then we test the agent when the flag is true. Then we have another test where we force the flag to be false, and then we test the same scenario, but now the flag is false. And then we expect that this too has not been called, because if it is, then something's wrong with our agent, right? With our code is doing things that it shouldn't. Yeah, that's it, a little bit of the demo there. Now moving on to the next slide, going back to the slides.
I
But
can take over again.
feel free in the meantime if you have any questions about what we showed here, and we can explore more.
One second. This is correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you want to take it off, Asaf? And then we can...
Yeah, I'd love to. I think the intro here is that since we started to actually work on this webinar together, it is always only proven exactly what we've been thinking the whole time. This works very, very naturally together to solve not exactly the same problems, but problems that are on the same workflows and pipelines. And so relevant to many different types of users. The moment we're starting to think about how can we still keep this creativity and fun in engineering and building product by doing that, but still being able to do it in a safe environment and in a fast way, it's only natural that we start to gate and monitor and observe. So it starts from FlagSmith, I think, where we're thinking about the pre-release, pre-deploy versions and state of the work people are working on. And then we can look at how we can do very targeted releases, which is very common practice these days, either specific groups of customers that we know we can ping ideas and early versions and early iterations of new stuff with. It can be canary deployments, which is kind of the same thing, but without specific customers. So releasing to a subset of users, 10%. And the moment we do have really good instrumentation and observability about what was the result of those things, this is a super powerful way to gain very fast feedback. Works better when you have really high throughput, but still very valuable at any size. And also thinking of experimentation, sometimes things do break. And when things do break, at least we want to know we have a fast way to turn them back to the previous state. And that's really where kill switches come in. At any given moment, if our experimentation went too far or for whatever reason we feel we need to revert, change course, it's as easy as an instant kill switch with feature flags, which is if for any other reason, this in itself should be a good enough reason for any engineer the next time thinking of releasing something big or a big change to just wrap it in a flag, have this ability to kill switch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, agents are this big Pandora's box, right? Like it can do so many things, and so there is so much space to cover to know that everything's working that you can possibly. So you need to have flags, you need to monitor what's going on in production. So the way we see agents is that there is only one way to improve its quality, and it's via iteration, right? So before going to production, you want to have some safety level, some trust level that your agent is doing good, at least on the scenarios that you thought about, that your team thought about, right? That your beta test users found. So then with LangWatch, like we showed, you can write scenarios to validate these agents are working on those scenarios. And this gives you reproducibility and regression prevention. This is key, and this is how it connects a lot with the flags for FlagSmith, or this is essential because as soon as you want to go to production as soon as possible to expand your area of surface area where issues can go wrong. But as soon as you detect if it's a bad enough issue, then you can use the kill switch, right? Stop it right away. If it's not, then you leave it running. But regardless, you want to take this issue that happened and bring it back to development and be sure that you can reproduce it and be sure that it won't happen again. So then you're iterating and improving. Having those tests, those agent tests allow you to just move forward. And then, as I've said, monitoring the performance is essential. So if you change your prompt, you create a new version and you want to, you have flags, you have different groups or A/B tests there, you probably want to check if that new prompt isn't spending too much more tokens, or if the business metric, if the escalation rates, for example, are going up, and you didn't expect that. Cool.
I think an awesome recap there. Let's already get one of the questions out there, which I see is sent to everyone, but I think this one is a combination of both. Do you think AI release processes are going to get more automated or locked down with governance?
I think more automated, of course. Like, we are in the age of AI, so we are looking for automation. We want to, we actually just released an MCP that generates the scenario code for you. So you can actually ask an AI to write tests for your AI, right? So people don't realize, maybe because there's so much automation, but there's still so much handwork, and we can speed up agent development for sure. So more automated. Even though the critical, let's say, business insight and decisions still comes from you, right? And that's basically the whole point. When you look at your agent and you're testing it and something weird happens, you kind of know it, but you don't put it on paper and you don't make it testable and executable. If you do so, then you are running more and more towards automation and just improvement. So yeah, I'll be on the automated side here.
Yeah, exactly. And especially indeed, I think the biggest hurdle right now is to define what those tests should be, and also actually writing those tests. Automating them makes it much more easier, though we do see that and do find it important also for companies to always think about what quality means and what good look likes means to companies. And that's still a manual process which people need to think about.
Some people are afraid of locking down because we add more processes, so then it slows things down. But actually, I'd say the lockdown is already happening. 95% of agent projects, according to MIT, already don't go live because people are afraid. So we want to actually remove this lockdown.
Exactly. Then another question around evals. Will they eventually become mandatory, like unit test in the software industry? And I think you're a big fan, Rogerio, about unit test and TDD driven development or test driven development. What does the future looks like? And you talked a bit on simulations as well. Is that the same? Yeah.
No, yeah, I think so. And I think it depends, actually. Just like unit tests, for some companies and some teams, it's mandatory. And for other teams, they don't use it at all, right? So it really depends on the stage that you are and on how much quality matters to you. If you're doing just like creative tasks that generating images, for example, this is one thing. If you're doing medical research or some financial things, then it's something else entirely. So we've seen teams, a lot of teams that already, as they started using scenarios, they're like, we made it now an essential mandatory part of our flow, no new features coming out without being fully tested. Having that said, there are parts where it is actually nice that you release it to the world, of course, gated under the feature flag and safe, so then you can have this faster feedback from out there. But yeah, it will vary from your case.
Cool. Then another question with a very Portuguese name, so maybe that's yours, or at least you want to go out, Rogerio. And does LangWatch run in CI/CD, or is it something? Oh, or is it mainly used after deployment? Also, does it integrate with agent frameworks that I'm currently using, like LangGraph?
Yes. It like I showed, is just built on top of traditional unit tests library like vtest and pytest. So it definitely runs on the CI/CD, and you can leverage all the tooling existing there. In fact, that's how most people do it. And then integration, yeah, we have integration with both ADK and LangGraph. And actually, we have a guide saying integrate any agent, because all you need, the bare minimum is a string, but we build everything on top of the OpenAI standard of messages list. So those raw content standards, you can just integrate that, and that's it. And then you're good to go, and you can start writing your scenarios.
Awesome. Good. I think the final question, and Asaf, this is all yours. Reducing context switching is something we're thinking about a lot in our department. LangWatch mentioned an MCP server. Does FlagSmith have anything like this at the moment?
Yes, thank you. Actually, we do. We're just releasing the first version of our MCP server as well, that is aimed to remove context switching both for engineers and for release managers. So both from a code perspective and from a day-to-day work with the system perspective, that can get both overwhelming and just really unnecessary stuff that AI can really do. Came up an interesting topic there of really, is the final switch of the flip, can that be the AI? But we have the tools and different systems in FlagSmith and other flagging solutions to introduce your own governance exactly for your own rules, that both gives you the speed up to the point of the final yes or no, that in most cases is still human. That's a big question. When will that change?
Yeah.
But for now, we're still seeing that it is human. We're just really helping to streamline the process there, bring as much context as possible, and make it an easier decision for a human to make.
Awesome.
Awesome, cool. I think that was a cool thank you. So let's those were the questions today, Asaf and Rogerio. I think let's wrap this up. Unless you want to ask yourself a couple of questions, but I think that's it. Let's wrap this up with a couple of links shared here. Obviously, the GitHub pages from both FlagSmith and LangWatch. Which you can both try for free, developer tools, right? And feel free to connect with any of us per email, LinkedIn, or anywhere where you'd like to reach us. We are currently offering special joint sessions with FlagSmith and LangWatch experts together in one call. As you could see at the beginning of this webinar, Lior from Sky Ganshu showed how he's using, or how his team of a lot of developers is using FlagSmith and LangWatch together in order to release AI features more safely. Feel free to scan this QR code. It will lead you to a form where you can sign up for a session where we will do that together specifically for your use case. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone, all the attendees and all the entire crowd for joining us, whether that was at the beginning or slightly towards the end. Still saw people popping up. So excited that everyone was here. We live streamed this one on LinkedIn and X. So very curious towards seeing those results too, but that will be for later. And we will share the recording with everyone who couldn't make it today. Thanks so much, Rogerio. Thanks so much, Asaf, for joining us in this call and for all the insights today. And also Lior and the Sky team. Amazing to see this. And I wish you all a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.